It's wonderful to be here, and let me start by apologizing for not speaking German. Thank you so much for tolerating me. I apologize.
I'm sure we get along
Cheers.
quite well. And just look it up, on October 28th last year, Mark Zuckerberg held a very intense speech, a video that probably most of us have seen, and it was about Meta's change in strategy towards becoming a metaverse-first company. We'll have very much time today to speak about what metaverse is. We have 10 minutes maybe to understand metaverse. And then, so it's a two-part talk. First is understand metaverse. Second one would be about brands in metaverse.
Yes.
Maybe you can start with telling us, why is this so central in Meta's strategy for the next years?
Well, that, for those who don't know, is an Oculus Quest 2 headset. And it is a component of our larger strategy. But to take a step back, fundamentally, the idea of the metaverse and how we are investing in it, and to be clear, we are far from the only company that is doing this. We don't claim to have invented it. This is just an area that we believe we have significant opportunity in. The reason that we're investing so heavily in it is that we see significant value in, and if COVID has taught us nothing, it's that we can find ways to be more present with one another when we're not physically in the same space. One thing that I think Hollywood has done a very good job of is trying to suggest that the only reason one might go to a virtual world is because the world that we're in now lacks something or is troubled. We don't believe that. The entire concept of what we're building is around this idea that the physical world is ideal, that in-person conversation is where we all want to be. But if we can't have that, what can we do to enhance presence amongst one another? Where can we find other ways to build community and connection using these new technologies? The metaverse as it stands has three contexts. One is augmented reality. I didn't catch a whole lot about what was being discussed, but I think I figured out enough that we're certainly talking a bit, correct me if I'm wrong, about using augmented reality for product try-on. A moment. Yes. So
we could switch to German now?
Yeah, exactly. I set myself up. Augmented reality being a key context. Mixed reality, for those who don't know, being a virtual object being placed in a physical world. And then, of course, virtual reality, where one is fully immersed. And we think that each of those contexts provides new opportunity for us to find new ways for us to come together and for us to be able to have virtual presence. That's the fundamental reason why we care.
So there are a few things in there that I find very interesting. One is you relate Meta's strategy very much to devices that either blend or create a virtual reality. Is that for you an essential part of the overall definition of metaverse?
Developing hardware for it?
Yeah, accessing metaverse through AR, VR, or blended reality.
So, great question. So there are those three contexts, and then I think there's the other side of it, which is often forgotten, which is for those who wish to consume content from the metaverse but don't want to be fully immersed. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I were to go into a virtual world right now. That's going to obviously occupy all of my senses. I'm going to be present there. I'm going to be completely present, as it were, in that space. However, other people might want to pay attention to what's happening in that world, but not be in that same virtual environment. And they might consume that by looking at a live video stream, for example, or an audio stream. So traditional two-dimensional media coming to life. So I think there is this generalized concept that the only way that we can enter a virtual world is if we fully immerse ourselves in it. And what's important to note when we think about the metaverse is that it's a scale. You can completely drop yourself into a virtual world, or you could step back and watch other people in it, or you could tune in just like you would traditional linear media like TV or radio. So there's an arc to it. So hardware is a component, but it's not going to replace everything that we use today. It's going to, not to be silly, augment it.
And what is let's say, the role that Meta as a company is striving for in the context of metaverse?
Yeah, so we're developing a couple of product lines which have both a hardware component and a software component tied to the metaverse. The one in front of us is, of course, Oculus, which is focused on virtual reality. We've recently released a pair of glasses called Ray-Ban Stories, not yet available in Germany, but hopefully soon. And that allows for people to be able to take photographs and video through their through lenses in the frames of their glasses, and then upload those directly into the cloud if they wish. It also has an integrated smart assistant. If you could imagine, and Mark did a good job of this in the video from Connect last year, what we're going to see is a blend over time of these different devices. There was a recent post from him a couple of days ago talking about Project Cambria. That is a mixed reality headset that we're building. And what we're ultimately going to get to are fully immersive devices, somewhat immersive devices like Cambria, and then perhaps something a little bit more subtle like these that will allow for augmented reality to become a more natural part of our lives so that we're not walking around carrying phones in front of us all the time. As we continue down that path, technically, some of this stuff, and let's be honest, nobody looks cool wearing a headset. Some of these things are going to get better over time because the technology will continue to shrink and it will become more socially acceptable to wear it. And that ultimately is where we start to think that there will be a key inflection point. So our investment is tied to that hardware and then the software side of it too, which is where we've been building for the last 18 years. There's about 3.5 billion people that use our software every single month. So across all of our products, about one, give or take, 1 out of 2 people on the planet use some form of Meta software to connect with one another, a Meta product. And that community of people may very well end up migrating into some of these new spaces too. So we see a lot of opportunity in building the hardware that will ultimately sustain the communities that will move into the metaverse.
And now when we start reading about metaverse, we stumble upon companies like Epic, like Roblox.
Yeah.
Apparently Microsoft is in there. We hear terms like Decentraland and so on. Mm-hmm. Can you help us better understand how all of that, all the companies and what they're doing, how that relates to metaverse?
Yeah.
Where it all comes together in somewhat a metaverse? And
definitely. So think about the metaverse as a parallel to the internet, which is nobody owns the internet. There are set standards. So anyone in here, if they wanted to build an app, start a website, what have you, they can do it. You don't need permission to do it. It's not globally regulated. It's just a set of standards. You could argue that that is exactly the same for the metaverse. So we're building on our set of we're building on top of the concept of virtual, augmented, and mixed reality ourselves, and we're creating hardware and software to serve that. But that won't prevent, nor should it, any other company from continuing to develop that too. And as I mentioned, there are people on that slope, right, of what it means to be fully immersed. So when you look at Roblox, for example, that is a very immersive two-dimensional world, which means I'm sitting in front of a computer or on my phone and I'm building a world in that space, but I'm not in it. That's still arguably an experience in the metaverse, but it's a two-dimensional experience. It's lower on the immersion scale than what might happen if, down the road, Roblox chose to build a virtual reality experience, in which case they would be fully immersed in it. That is not a qualitative judgment. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other. We're going to need a wide range of experiences to cater to what different people want at different times, just like the internet has built too. There's a reason why we have episodic, short-form content on the internet and long-form too. Everybody wants something different, and we want to be able to build for it.
I think that's very helpful to sort it to some extent. What we also need to talk about, I think, is that metaverse is not just a user experience front-end aspect to talk about, but most of it is somewhere in the backend. It's network, it's protocols, it's connectivity, it's a multifaceted thing. As you said, it's supposed to become the next internet. So there's much more to internet than just our smartphone that we use to access it. Can you help us better understand what will be needed to build metaverse as you will need it to fulfill your strategy?
Sure. Well, we've been seeing this work over the last 10 years, really. If we keep coming, so we first of all, I'll pick this up because it's a good example. So this headset is about 6 or 7 iterations down the line from the first one that started. I started at Meta 7 years ago. And at that time, we had just purchased Oculus. And you could get an Oculus headset for about $800 as a developer kit. And you needed a $2,500 computer to power it. And you were also connected by a number of cables. So if you're like me, you almost always were going to trip over it. You couldn't see the world around you, so you're going to step on your dog. There were all sorts of problems. It's true. This particular iteration down the road is $300, and it's completely self-contained. So it does connect to a phone for connectivity, but ultimately it's just for setup. It'll sit on a Wi-Fi network. It has a very high fidelity screen with a high refresh rate. So what that means is, as you look around you in virtual reality, there isn't a lag, so you don't get motion sickness, for example, from that. There's high fidelity audio, and if you look on the front, there's 4 dots. These are cameras. And these cameras allow you to set a safe space in which to play. So since there's no wires, you won't trip on anything. But if you are playing near a stairwell, this will also ensure that you don't have an unfortunate accident. All of these things are critically important because they show how we've iterated over time to get to something that's more comprehensive and more affordable. And of course, to your point, that's the hardware, but it sits on infrastructure, right? So connectivity being key. But over time, I think it's reasonable to see a trajectory there where we'll see this hardware become even more accessible. And as it becomes more accessible, seeing a wider adoption of it too.
Let me ask a few questions to the audience.
Please.
Who of you had the opportunity to look into something like Decentraland? This one, Jan. Okay. Who of you has an experience in playing around with Roblox or Fortnite, some of these games that are also related to metaverse? So few. And who had the chance to put on this iteration or an early iteration of a VR experience? So it's much more, but still a few, I think. I had the funniest part of preparing for this talk was meeting with Ollie. I'm not sure Ollie, there you are. With Ollie and another colleague of yours called Per Burple. And we met in Horizon Workrooms. Mm-hmm. And we've prepared a quick video on how we met there and how it looks like to be in this world together. So maybe we can have that video for a few minutes. So fantastic to be in this place. I'm here with Flo and Malte, but also, hey Per, good to see you again. And Ollie, what a pleasure to see you again. You look quite different over the past few years. We haven't seen since before the pandemic. So how have you been and where are we here?
Things evolved. So we are here in Workrooms, a 360 space to meet and collaborate for work. Good to be with you here. I'm in this kind of rooms quite frequently these days with my team and also with partners like Pilot to defy distance and to get this feeling of presence back, even if we're far apart. You're in Hamburg right now, I'm in Munich right now. We couldn't be further away in Germany. But now we are here together, and as a team, we have this frequently with some being here in the room, some dialing in from conference room from flat screen 2D, and some even on the go on a mobile phone coming back from bringing the kids to school. This is the new daily life and routine.
Maybe you can show us a bit of the features that you like the most in Workrooms.
Oh, happy to. It's quite difficult for the audience here, probably on 2D right now. The full magic of this unfolds as soon as you step in. There is a virtual room all around us here, 360 at the top and at the bottom. And yeah, there's a Pilot logo. You decorated this quite well here for OMR. That's quite nice. I wear VR glasses, as you do here. We don't have any controllers in our hand. It's our natural hands moving. And I must say, my brain really loved this, that this is synchronized in front of my eyes and it feels like these are my hands, even though they're a little bit avatar-y. I see your Apple MacBook popping up here once in a while. I can bring up my screen. I can use PowerPoint and work on my documents, read emails. This all blends in here. My real keyboard is coming up if I want, and I can look through all this here and see the reality. It's all blending into each other. That's quite nice. And yeah, we could together just jump to the whiteboard here and hack on the next augmented reality conversion lift campaign. If we want, this is a good place to do this.
That seems just like the right place to work on these kind of topics. I must say I'm really impressed by what I see and experience already. Where is this going? I mean, this is just a beta, as I understand. Where is this headed?
Yeah, the exciting thing is there are so many people working on it right now. There's such a commitment from Meta and from others in the industry to really push this forward. There is change coming every day, this is evolving every day. It's improving quality. It's getting new features. The next features that are around the corner could be that I see your real mimic. If you don't like my presentation deck and you probably look grumpy about it, or you like it, I would see that our eye contact really feels natural. This is also important and coming up, and really high definition. Then we can work with products, with text, create together. This will be quite exciting.
So it's really fantastic to be here together. Per, great to have you here as well. You look fantastic in video. Ollie, I'd say, give me a high five.
Yeah. Shall we go to the beach? I can invite you over if you like.
Let's leave the others here at Pilot at OMR and we go to the beach.
Okay, we go to the beach. Let's do that. Wait a second. I get it done. Here we are. The others come with us.
Yeah, so fantastic. I'd say we just stay here and call it a day. Thank you guys for joining in. Really good. Thanks for showing us around. To give at least a video experience of what feels completely different when you're in this room virtually. Thank you very much.
Bye all.
So apparently we had to get back from the beach to meet here. Thank you again, Ollie, Per, and you saw two other colleagues of ours who shot this on video. Sorry.
May I?
Yes,
because
please.
Thank you for showing that, because I think that actually just demonstrated everything that we were just talking about. We were just watching exactly an experience in a virtual world. So that's on the lower end of the fidelity pipe when we talked about streaming content. That was a perfect example of mixed reality, where we had a physical individual being pulled into a virtual space. So mixed reality goes both ways. You can have a physical individual in a virtual space, or vice versa. And I think you got a good idea of the forms of expression and presence that can happen in that space. Because the four people that were there could have been anywhere in the world at any time, but would have looked and felt present. Sorry, I just...
No,
thank you for that.
Fine. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I must say, this is one of the things you can read about and you can watch videos about, which is nothing to experience it yourselves. It's mind-blowing, I have to admit that. But before we, everyone wants to put it on, it's not connected here. We have to talk about brands in the metaverse.
Yeah.
So what will be in for brands when we talk about metaverse? Is this like I put on some kind of out-of-home campaign in a workroom, a static poster? Or where will this be heading?
So I went to school for theater. I did not study business.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. And part of the reason that I ended up in marketing at all was because I like storytelling. And for me, what I think ultimately what this provides to brands is an actual way to finally deliver on the idea of being able to storytell in a brand, because you're actually able to immerse someone fully in it. The thing that it also presents, and this has been true about every emerging technology that I've seen or I've had the opportunity to work on, is that we often bring our what we're used to from the physical state of the business today into new technologies without evolving to what makes them distinct. So, for example, I get asked very often by clients, if I'm a retailer and I have stores, should I go and build a store in the metaverse? And you certainly could do that, but I don't think it actually provides as much opportunity for what the metaverse can ultimately provide, because you're not playing to the benefits of that space. For example, if I'm a beauty brand and I sell physical beauty products, right? I could use the metaverse to sell a physical product, and we do that today with product try-on. I might see an ad for lipstick. I virtually try the lipstick on. I look great in it, and I decide to buy it, and it delivers to me physically to my door. Alternatively, as a beauty brand, I could sell that same product to an avatar. That would be the one-to-one. Or I could ask myself, what does my beauty brand fundamentally stand for? And how can I metaphorically bring that to life in the metaverse? Because the metaverse does not have to follow, or virtual worlds specifically, do not have to follow the same laws of physics that the physical world does. So an interesting question for a brand is, if I did not have to follow the laws of physics, if anything was possible, like literally, if I want to be a 100-foot tall teddy bear, or a 1-inch tall, grasshopper. I can be that in the metaverse. So if anything is possible, what is the story and the product I want to sell in that space? And that question, I think, offers up a much more interesting path for what is in it for brands than the one-to-one idea of I'll sell clothing to an avatar or lipstick to an avatar, which doesn't mean that those things don't have value. They do, but they're not the full extent of the opportunity that the metaverse provides.
And thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. The concept of real estate in a virtual world, I don't understand it yet, but that's a different thing. How many brands are already active in the Horizon environment? Do you have any brands active in there as well?
So both with augmented and virtual reality, there's nothing preventing a brand from building a world in Horizon or from building effects or content that leverages augmented reality on our platforms today. Absolutely nothing stopping you. There are technical limitations, like worlds, for example, are limited to how many people can currently be in them. We're slowly scaling that up, but you can't have thousands of people or millions of people in one world yet. Hopefully someday we'll get there. And we've seen everybody from brands like Balenciaga to brands like Wendy's experimenting with creating worlds. I applaud the brands that have stepped into that space first, but I also think that there's a lot of opportunity and value for us to actually spend some of this time thinking. I think in the introduction, which I hope was nice because I didn't know, but in the introduction, you mentioned I came from MTV. And in MTV, I worked on integrated marketing, right? So we spent a great deal of time getting RFP'd every single day. And RFPs would have a 12 to 24-hour turnaround. The reality for us in our business is that we never have the time to stop and think. And we actually have that right now. We have like 2 to 3 years to stop and think about what we really want to build in this space. We don't have to respond to that RFP in 24 hours yet. So when brands ask, what should I do? My first suggestion is go buy one of these and spend some time in it. Spend some time using augmented reality. Try every single thing that comes your way and form your own opinion on what a good experience looks like, on what an experience that you would want to build for your clients looks like, and perhaps more importantly, what all of you as actual human beings would want out of this technology. Because it's so early right now, we actually have that time to be thoughtful about it. We never have the time to be thoughtful. So that's what's in it for brands right now. And I could tell you to go out and build a Spark ad, and sure, but I think the thoughtfulness is probably what's more valuable.
Do you think there are any kind of mistakes or things that we didn't do the best we could in let's say the internet, in desktop, in mobile?
Yeah.
I think we can all think of a few, but what do you think, and some we will take with us also to the metaverse, I would assume, because they're quite human to some extent, but let's only look at advertising. That makes it easier.
You want to start with microsites or something else?
Let's do pop-ups. How many pop-ups do we have? Is there anything you'd say?
Okay, so I think years ago, I applied for a job at a gaming company. This was like 15, 16 years ago. And it was right when the beginning of in-game advertising started. And I thought it was really, really exciting until I realized that what they were selling were billboards on a racetrack, a virtual racetrack, right? So it was kind of like the absolute simplest, most basic approach to advertising. There's billboards here, we're gonna put billboards there, we're gonna sell it to someone, done. I think what we have the opportunity to do when we look at the metaverse from a commercial or advertising standpoint is maybe not ask the question like, well, what's the ad model? How are we going to measure it? What kind of units will you have? And allow ourselves to think that, well, clearly the basics of marketing, right? Right person, right message, right time, that's not going to go away. Good marketing is good marketing. But the way that we persuade an individual in these spaces might be profoundly different than the way that we had previously done it in traditional media or traditional digital media. So I wouldn't say that of course, there's mistakes all over the place, in digital media, but I think we actually have the opportunity to give ourselves a lot more runway by, frankly, taking this opportunity to reinvent some of what we do And again, everyone in this room, whether you're, whether you work at an agency or a brand, or you're just a human, has the ability to provide meaningful feedback on this right now and think, what would I actually want out of a commercial experience? What do I actually want this to be from a high quality media experience? Is it an ad that's going to pop up in front of me when I step into a virtual world? Or is it something entirely new and unique to that space that will take us to a new place? I don't know what that is yet. That is totally okay, because as we build the actual infrastructure to build it, we have the time to experiment to make that possible. And then we'll come up with new mistakes. But it'll give us, an entirely different runway.
I think that's a good one. Let's make new mistakes, because I do believe that this is. I fully agree with you, because this is an opportunity to rethink the basics, and I think we brought a lot of things in our backpack from desktop to mobile, even though there are apparently a number of native experiences being created through mobile. But the backpack was too full with things that we didn't do right in the first place. Let's think of clicks and other stuff like easy. So there is a big opportunity that. Time's up, but how much of our daily lifetime will we spend in metaverse in 5 to 10 years from now?
As much as you want to spend in it. I mean, I don't. To be clear, I on a personal level, I don't think time spent is the right metric for the metaverse.
Start with mistakes. Thank you.
Yeah, no, seriously. And I'm not saying that metric doesn't make sense, but in the context of the metaverse, it's so broad. I don't know that. We're not trying to optimize something to keep you in that space. We're trying to optimize it to be valuable when you're there. So, for example, what you saw in Horizon Workrooms, that's not designed to keep you in the workroom. It's designed to provide a good space for you to have your meeting and then move on with your day. And if that meeting is in virtual reality, great. If that meeting is at the coffee shop down the street, fine. It's not being built in that way. So that said, when we think about that scale that we talked about earlier for the metaverse, I do think that we will be leveraging elements of the metaverse more consistently than we do today. And frankly, you may already. If your car has a heads-up display in it when you drive it, you are leveraging the metaverse to a degree in your everyday life. If you are augmenting a photo that you share on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook or whatever, you are using the metaverse. So we already do it. It's just all the pieces haven't completely come together. So, I suspect we'll spend a great deal of time leveraging it, but it's not all going to be in one place. I don't think we're all going to be wearing headsets all day long.
Hopefully not. Hopefully you can see ourselves in person still. Thank you, Escher, for being here. And before we open it up to questions, I want to thank you, because I think we touched upon a number of aspects of Metaverse, and hopefully for all of you, we could clarify to some extent what Metaverse is, what it's not, and we still have some time for questions, I assume.
Sure.
Thank you, Escher.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.